Sure, and we have a little bit of an issue in Worcester this year. I think it has to do with the weather, with squirrels. There seem to be squirrels infestating all sorts of people's attics, and it wasn't just homes, but churches. And so the problem was that the First Unitarian Church in Worcester, they had squirrels above the ceilings, and they're trying to worship, and they hear the squish, 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 squish. And so in the Unitarian tradition, they're very concerned about animal rights, and they got a bunch of have-a-heart traps, and they went out and they caught all these squirrels, and they drove out to Green Hill Park and released them all. And you know how squirrels are. They found their way back and moved back into the attic, and scratch, scratch, scratch. It was still a problem. The Assembly of God Church down the street had a different idea with their squirrel problem. They had a prayer meeting, and it was clear to them that God had sent these squirrels to challenge them in focusing on the word and prayer during worship. And so they simply determined that this is how worship would be, and every time they worshiped, there was a scratch, scratch, scratch over the ceiling. But then there was the First Baptist Church, who said, well, it's the deacons who have to decide what to do. So the deacons got together, and they decided that they would set up, to try to be more welcoming of a church, to set up a little squirrel membership class. And they contacted Valley Forge and had them come up with a special squirrel pamphlet about what it means to be an American Baptist squirrel, and they made sure that there were Bibles available, and that they matched the squirrels up with a person who had been in the church for a while to show them the way. And they had a special worship service where all of the squirrels became members. And now the church only sees the squirrels on Christmas and Easter. The whole Bible, but I
got to use that.
Favorite. Any of you have favorite Bible stories? This is actually the story that was the text at my ordination. It's the story of Jesus and the woman with the flow of blood and Jairus' daughter is found in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, and it goes something like this. Jesus was in the boat and crossed to the other side. A great crowd gathered around him. He was by the sea. And one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, he fell down at his feet and he begged him repeatedly, my little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she might live. And so he went with them, and a large crowd followed, pressing in on him. Now, there was a woman who had suffered from hemorrhages for 12 years, and she had endured much and been to many physicians, and she spent all that she had, but she was no better. Rather, she had grown worse. Now, she had heard about Jesus. So she came up behind him in the crowd, and she touched his cloak. She said, if I but touch his clothes, I will be made well. And immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately, power went forth from him, and Jesus looked around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? The disciples said to him, Lord, you see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say who touched me? And he looked all around to see who had done it. And the woman, knowing what had happened to her, she came forward in fear and trembling, and falling down before him, she told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go and be healed of your disease. while he was still speaking. So people came from the leader's house, and they said, your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, do not fear, only believe. He allowed no one to follow him except for Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And when they came to the house, the leader's house, he saw this great commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And he entered the house and he said to them, why do you make such a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping. They laughed at him. He put all of them out of the house, and he took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and he went into where the child was. And he took her by the hand, and he said, Talitha kum, which means, little girl, get up. And immediately, she got up, and she began to walk around. She was 12 years of age. And all of them were amazed and overwhelmed when they saw this. But Jesus told them not to tell anyone about this. Oh, and he told them, give her something to eat. Here I am telling you God's blessed words. Thanks, Jesus. I'm very blessed with the gift of friendships with other storytellers far and wide. And one of my favorite professional storytellers is Lanny Peterson. And she told a story and said it was okay for me to tell it too. It's funny because preachers just like steal each other's stuff all the time. And in the storytelling world, they think it's an issue. I had to learn this. So this is from Lanny Peterson. She's a remarkable teller of her own. Jamie was a senior in high school and he had the world by the tail. He was captain of the football team, pretty sure their team was going to states this year. He had such great grades. He'd already been accepted to his college of choice on a football scholarship. And by the way, he was dating the prettiest girl in the school. It was after football practice, and he had his backpack with his books on his back, and he was on his bike, and he went sailing down the hill, heading to home, and he never saw the truck that hit him. He was in a coma in the hospital for quite some time. When he finally woke up in the ICU, the doctor said to him, son, you are lucky to be alive. And after the doctor went through and told him all of the various things that had happened to him in terms of broken bones in the back and in the pelvis and brain injury, and he did not think he was lucky at all. But he asked the one important question, Doc, will I play football again? The doctor said, son, I don't think you're ever going to walk again. Well, he went from the ICU onto the hospital floor, and from there to Spalding Rehab Center, and finally home, where physical therapists would come to the home to work with him. By now, football season was long over. They didn't make it to states. Basketball season was over. Baseball season was mostly over. His friends would Instagram him, text him, stop by to see him, and his best friend said to him, hey, Jamie, listen, I wanted you to hear it from me, not from anyone else, but I asked your girl to the senior prom. I knew you wouldn't mind. I mean, it's not like you could dance, right? Oh, no, I don't mind, he said. He minded. He minded. So he stopped answering texts. Stopped answering calls, wouldn't see anyone, lay in the bed all day, all night, for weeks. His mother was worried. One day she's about to go to work and she stops in the doorway of his room, and she's like, Jamie, honey, listen, you really need to get up today and get some things done. I know that you have a lot of pain in your legs, but you have to do the exercises that the therapist told you about. And he reached on his bed and took a lamp and he threw it at his mother, and it smashed over her head right on the top of the doorway. And without a word, she turned around and she went to work. Jamie, he rolled over and stared at the wall. Well, his mother came home after work, and she stood at that doorway, and she said, James Michael, get up. Do you know that thing about using their first name? A whole different way of children hearing. So he got up, and she handed him some work boots. There was still some shattered china on the floor where he hadn't cleaned up the lamp. And she said, follow me. And he went on his walker as gingerly as he could, and they went down the hall past the bathroom and stopped at the basement stairs. And she said, James Michael, go down those stairs. He was like, Mom? She said, now. Well, they've been working on stairs with the physical therapist, so he managed to very carefully hand her the walker and take the cane, and one step at a time. It took a long time, but he got down there. She followed him down, and she handed him some items. She handed him a pair of goggles, a pair of work gloves, and a hammer. And then she went back upstairs. So he put on the goggles, and he put on the gloves, and took the hammer in his hand, and there, against the wall, were some very, very old storm windows. And he had a hammer in his hand. And he went over and he smashed every single one of those windows with all of his might until exhausted, he went back upstairs and collapsed into bed. Well, the next day, his mother came to his room after work and said, Jamie, get up. He did, and same thing, long walk down the hall past the bathroom to the top of the basement stairs and down the stairs one at a time very carefully, and the goggles and the gloves and the hammer, and he looked, and there were the windows from the sunroom that had been replaced several years ago and were no longer of any use, and his mother left him alone, and he knew what to do, and he hit every single one of those windows until there was just nothing but glass. And he went back upstairs exhausted. Third day, his mother comes home after work, stands in his room and says, Jamie, get up. And he knew the routine by now. And he got up and went down the hall, past the bathroom to the top of the basement stairs, and went down the stairs. And he said, Mom, really, we don't need to go through this. I'll go to that psychologist that you had asked. She said, down the stairs. So he went and he took the goggles and the gloves and the hammer, and he's like, but Mom, the windows. She said, the neighbors had replaced their windows. She had collected like old storm windows all up and down the street. Anderson replacement windows had made a fortune in their neighborhood that year. So once again, you know what he did? Took that hammer and he, with everything he had, he smashed every single one of those windows until he stood there exhausted. And he looked down at his work boots, and he was actually standing in a pile of shredded, broken, cracked up glass. It was that time in the late afternoon when the sun slants across the horizon. And it was one of those basements where there's just those small windows way up at the top. You know, the kind that are hard to clean, and there's all sorts of cobwebs and dust. And the sun was shining through that window, through all of that dust and cobwebs, and Jamie, for some reason, scooped up some glass in his gloved hands, and the sun struck the glass, and he saw he could make colors, that sapphire and gold, and it was like a prism of emerald, and all these beautiful colors in the glass. He went back upstairs and slept. The next day, after work, his mother came and she stood at his door, but he was already up and dressed, and he said, Mom, I wondered if you could drive me somewhere. I need to do some errands. She said, you want to go out of the house and drive somewhere? Yes, honey, anything. You want to go to Friendly's for ice cream? Do you want to go to the grocery store? Where do you want to go? He said, well, I want to go to the hardware store. Okay, well, what do you need to get? I need to buy some glass. And she said, uh-oh. What have I done? But they went to the hardware store, and then they went to Michael's craft store, and he bought all sorts of things. And he went back down very slowly on that cane, down to the basement, and told his parents they needed to stay away. This was his space. And he was down there day after day for weeks. And he finally came up. He presented his mother with a brand new lamp with a stained glass lampshade. Jamie never did play football again, but he did learn to walk. And in addition to his work as a teacher, he teaches adult education at night in his town. And his favorite class is teaching stained glass art.
Amen.
The story is from Mark chapter 7. Jesus went away to the region of Tyre. He did not want anyone to know he was there, but he could not escape notice. But a woman immediately heard about him. She had a child who was sick with an unclean spirit. This woman was a Gentile, Syrophoenician origin. Well, she came and she bowed down at Jesus' feet. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. And Jesus said to her, let the children be fed first. It's not right to take the children's food and feed it to the dogs. And she answered, Sir, even the dogs under the table, they eat the children's crumbs. And then Jesus said to her, for saying this, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. So she returned home, and she found her daughter lying on the bed, and that demon was gone. The story is told about a fellow named Carl. He was a quiet man and didn't talk much, big smile and a firm handshake. And he had taken the bus every day to work and had lived in that neighborhood for 50 years, although neighbors didn't really know him. They knew he had no children, and after he retired, he continued to walk to that bus stop every day. He said he liked the exercise. His wife had died 10 years before. He saw this flyer at the church asking for a volunteer to work in the garden. They wanted to start a garden right next to the church. And so Carl volunteered. He was in his 87th year by this point. And so he started working in the garden and digging the dirt and planting things. And one day these ruffians came over, 3 of them, and they were the kind of kids who were looking for trouble, you could just tell. And they came over and they started challenging him and, what are you doing, old man? And, using some language you might not want to use in church. And Carl had this hose and he lifted it up and asked if they wanted a drink. It was a hot summer day. And one of them grabbed the hose, and two others grabbed Carl, and they sprayed him with the hose and knocked him down and stole his watch and stole his wallet, and off they ran. But when they pushed him down, he fell on his bum leg. He'd been shot in World War II, and it never did work right. And he was like a turtle on his back. He just couldn't get up. Well, the minister saw out the window and came rushing down and helped him up and said, "Oh, Carl, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to call the police?" And Carl said, "No, they're just kids. They'll find their way." He went back to his garden. A few weeks later, those same kids came by again, the same thing. They were mocking him and taunting him, and it was still a hot day. He asked if they wanted a drink, and he offered them the hose, and they said, "Yeah, old man, we'll take a drink." And they grabbed the hose, and it was freezing cold water. They sprayed it all over him, and they taunted him and laughed at him and pushed him down and ran off. This time they pushed him down on his good leg, so he got up and brushed himself off and kept watering the garden. Well, it was about fall, and he was harvesting some of the tomatoes he had planted, and he heard a familiar voice, "Hey, old man," and he was so startled, he stumbled into the bushes and held up his hands to protect himself. It was one of those three kids, and he said, No, man, I don't want to hurt you." And he reached down and helped Carl up. He said, I have something for you. And he pulled out this rumpled paper bag and handed it to him. He said, "It's the stuff we stole from you. Even the money, it's still in the wallet. It's all there, old man. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was running with those kids all summer, and we would find people like you, and we would taunt them and steal from them and maybe beat them up. But you were different, man. You didn't fight back. We would challenge you, and we would hate you, and instead of hating us back, you loved us. You offered us water." Anyway, I just want you to know I'm sorry. I'm not running with those guys anymore. I'm going to go back to school. I'm really sorry, man. And off he went. Carl opened the paper bag, and sure enough, it was the watch that he'd gotten when he had retired from the factory. He put it on, and it had his name engraved in it. And it kept perfect time. And he pulled out the wallet. He actually didn't care about the cash. He opened it up, and there it was, that photograph of his bride on their wedding day, smiling up at him. He missed her so much. He put the picture back in the wallet, put the wallet back in his pocket with a smile. He kept picking those tomatoes. The day after Christmas, Carl died. And although he had no family at all, quite a few neighbors and friends came to the funeral at that church. And there was one lone young man, tall and skinny, sitting way in the back that the minister didn't recognize. Well, the next spring, the church put up a flyer. They needed a gardener and to volunteer at the church garden, which they now called Carl's Garden. And there was a knock on the minister's door, and this tall young man, the same one that had been sitting in the back, he had the flyer in his hand, and he said, "Excuse me, Reverend, I think this job is mine." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." And the man noticed the scarred hand and the tattoo that Carl had described when he told that story. He said, "I'm the one that gave Carl back his things. I'm the one that he really made a difference in my life." You know, and so he worked in that garden faithfully, planting flowers and weeding and harvesting tomatoes in the fall. And he went back to school, and then he went to college. He got a scholarship, and he married a fine young woman. But one day he came to the minister and he said, "I'm really sorry, but I need to resign my volunteer job as Carl's gardener." And so, "I'm sorry to hear that." He's like, "I've got too much going on in my life, but I want to thank you for everything. I am who I am because of this church and because of the love that Carl showed us. And I'm just really pleased." But my wife, she just had a baby last week. It's our first. It's a son, and between work and being a new dad, I can't do the gardening anymore. And they said, oh, I understand. Congratulations. The kid said, oh, thanks a lot, and headed out. And the minister said, oh, one more thing. He said, yeah? What did you name your son? He said, I named him Carl.